Welcome back to STROK'D, the art of mental stimulation, everybody. You know what time it is, where we dive into subjects at depths that most people aren't willing to go. We keep it real, raw nature, unfiltered, and what we think is what you get, coming straight from us, straight from the spirit, straight from the core.
You know, we were talking about something previously that is definitely of a delicate subject, but extremely important. You know, our sons are dying at an alarming rate, and it seems like that will never change. So obviously, we need to do a little bit about getting that corrected.
Right. Earlier this week, Tuesday, every Tuesday we drop a new episode. We dropped, warning, your son's life expectancy is 25. I know it took a lot of people back. I got a couple mixed reviews or whatever, but when they actually listened to it, they actually heard some of the points we were making to try to give some solutions for healing in the community and maybe, you know, stop some of this killing, man. Man, stop some of this hurt and some of this pain that we don't have to have. We're supposed to build together.
And that's one of the reasons why tonight, you know, we want to try to bring in our youth, you know, that's about direction in their life, has some purpose and some fulfillment within them. And the road and journey definitely was not easy. And we get the idea of what it means to be without fathers, without male figures, and why our youth as boys are suffering. So right. We have a guest tonight.
Oh, yeah, man. We have the one and only. We have a special guest tonight. Mr. Cedric Stephen Anderson Jr. is going to be here with us on the mic. He's going to give out his insight on what it's like, you know, to live that life, what that little boy goes through who might not have his father around and went through a lot of adversity in a lot of different situations, man. So what's up, Cedric? What's going on tonight?
Man, how y'all doing? Thank y'all for having me.
Of course, man.
And how are you feeling tonight, sir?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here. I'm one of those people who try to find something every day to be thankful for, you know, just to keep you going.
And man, that's what it's all about. You can find that one thing to be thankful for. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a journey. It's really what you do with it, man. If you've done an amazing job, man. When I hear your story and where you come from, all I can say is I'm proud of you.
Hey, thank you. I'm trying.
All right, so man, why don't you give us a little insight of what it's like? Okay, we're gonna take you back for a second. We're all gonna stop. Y'all gonna breathe. For those who want to close their eyes to really paint the picture, you can close your eyes. You're that little boy, man. What's that situation you grew up without your father being there? Whatever situation, I'm going to let you tell your own story about how that went about, though. But what did you really feel as that kid?
Man, I had an interesting life, you know, and it's still interesting. I'm still going, still striving, still breaking, you know, what we like to call generational curses. But for that little boy, Cedric Anderson Jr., you know, I grew up without my father. He went to jail when I was 2 years old on a 30-year drug possession charge. You know, us as black males, we battle a lot with that. Mm-hmm. And I grew up without my mom as well from probably about 4th grade. I think that was the last grade I lived with my mom. And after that, I bounced around a little bit, and my aunt took me in. And from then on, you know, that was my first experience in a 2-parent household. And honestly, from my perspective, I think that's what saved me, because that was my first introduction to living with a man. Prior to that, a man was never in my household. Right. So I hold my aunt's ex-husband now at this time, but they were married at the time. I hold him in very high regard, and he's not a perfect person, but just having a male figure there, I think, is a big thing for a young black male.
I agree wholeheartedly. You know, having a male figure, no doubt, gives you some structure, some discipline, some guidance, you know. And ideally, we want to be affectionate, but I want to go backwards a little bit. You know, as that young boy, though, when you were dealing with the issues of not having certain people around, what do you think your emotion was like when you look backwards?
To be honest, I was angry. And I listened to you guys last podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm thankful to be here to kind of further that conversation, because I am a part of that youth that you guys talking about, right? I was born in 95. I think that was the last year of the millennial generation. So I grew up in Generation Z. So the kids who life expectancy are 25, I'm a part of that, because that's my age group. Hey,
your generation's different, dude. Yeah. They're different.
I mean, to be honest with you, from my perspective, we're a product of the generation before us.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? Because from my perspective, the generation before us was the generation of drug sellers, right? And I think the music is supposed to be a form of artistic expression, right?
Correct.
So when you listen to music, especially hip hop, it tells you what's going on in the community. So I've, done a little research. So if you go back to the 70s, which was maybe the dance era,
Right.
The 80s was maybe the conscious rap, fight the power era. The 90s was what?
Gangster rap,
selling drugs.
That's it. Pimping.
And who you selling the drugs to? Other people in your community.
Community.
So then they became the drug users, right? Because the drug dealers of the 90s was selling it to the 2000s, and that's when, heavy marijuana drugs, popping perks and different pills and a lot of drug abuse music.
Right.
So what happens when the community is on drugs?
And I told you that in the last
Everybody
episode.
angry.
The last
we
episode,
killing each other.
we brought up that point that his generation before him was my generation.
Yeah.
Right.
And they listened to all that music and they kind of like portrayed these things. But Generation Z, they took it from their parents and they ran with it. They picked up the weapons, picked up the guns. They made it real. I mean,
and the crazy thing to me, when we start talking about those things in the 70s and 80s, you started to see households definitely without fathers, right? When you start thinking about the 40s, the 50s, they had fathers to some degree.
To some degree.
Right.
Even in slavery, black people were getting married as slaves.
right.
They believed in being married even when we were owned by another demographic, right?
Yeah, you wanted
Right.
a structure within the home, right? They believed in some form of a foundation. Me personally, I take my greats and my grands, and I go, guess what? They were married and they had a foundation. You had, a twofold household.
Right.
You had a mom and you had a father. And then eventually things started to change when media started to influence us, music specifically at that time, because it was so early. You didn't
Right.
have access to a lot of media. So the music was the primary. Simply put, when you let outside sources become your primary influence, we're subject to other thoughts. And we can find ourselves off course, right?
Exactly.
So in your youth as a child, when you finally had an aunt that had, a husband at that particular time that can give you some structure and discipline, you look back and you go, I value that, right?
Yeah, but at the time, I hated them.
I bet.
Right.
I hated them because I was raised around majority women. I mean, from the time I was with my mom, then I moved with my grandmother, my dad's mom, then I moved with my dad's sister, which was my aunt. It was all women. So I kind of had a little more freedom, a little more range of motion, expression. But when I moved in with a man, he say, hey,
Discipline.
you need to calm some of that down. You need to do what I say. Do it when I say it now.
You didn't have those rules and boundaries at
I
one
was
point.
like, whoa,
You were running free.
I'm not used to this. But now in adulthood, that was really probably what saved my life.
I got a question for you before you get to that, because we was talking about your generation. Did you ever find it at a time when you had to straddle the line, when you were trying to do better as this man that you are now?
Of course. And that was something that I think I wanted to mention when I listened to, you guys' last episode. The lore of being that as a young black male, right? We don't have a lot of positive black male figures, I would say. Like the last generation, maybe the Martin Luther Kings, Malcolm X. In our generation, the entertainer is who we hold in the highest regard.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? That's who the girls like.
Right.
That's who the guys want to be.
See, and that makes me think about the question is, did you see the curve? You're a little younger than I am. So for me, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, I started seeing people that were advocating in different capacities. You had MLK, you had Malcolm X, and that's still before my time technically, but I had people in my life. My story is a little similar to yours in that a ton of women raised me, six to be exact. So, and I bounce from house to house. So when we think about those scenarios, we don't have that structure. But my point in the curve is, you had those individuals who were taught their principles, so that kind of was instilled into you. Then you had an early stage, somebody like Tupac, who was an advocate prior to his gangster involvement in the music industry, as that influenced him, which in turn influenced a lot of young black males in our communities, right? The sad part is, not long after that, when we took that curve into gangster rap, there were no more voices of those type of male figures to teach you structure, discipline, guidance, principles, and values. You never saw that again.
Right. You think the new music that they have is a result of the entitlement in this new generation? Because most everything is given to them, as far as like mothers trying to make up for like father not being there or whatever the case may be. You think that's the new music? They don't really think. They just talk about things, material things all the time. You think that's the result?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Because the music is really a reflection of how the people feel. This is not really the music that's being made now is actually what's going on, you know. And as young black males, I personally believe a lot of them just angry. Most of them mad about my mom didn't keep my dad in the house. My dad might be in jail. You get what I'm saying? My teacher told me I wasn't gonna be shit. I mean, you get what I'm saying? That's all you hear, and really, that's all anger and rebellion. You get what I'm saying? So it's all really rebellious music. You know,
but you don't think that bad?
Don't like the police. My mama ain't keep my dad in the house. My teacher told me I wasn't gonna be nothing. You get what I'm saying? It's just rebellion.
Gotcha.
It's just rebellion.
Well, I was gonna say, as soon as you said that statement, all I could think about was the lack of affection. So what ends up happening when you take the male figure out of homes, then that male figure that's supposed to be a representation of strength, character, principles, value, is also supposed to be a nurturer, tuck you in at night, because, a long time ago, who came and tucked you in at night? It was daddy.
Exactly.
That was the foundation within the home. The mom didn't always do that.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? The mom would, in older cultures.
You felt protected with Dad.
Right. Daddy came in and make sure you was.
And
he was safe.
That's the true essence of a man, right? Nurturing. Most cooks are men. Chefs are men.
Yes.
What's the most nurturing thing you can do besides feed
your family?
Feed your family.
Yeah.
That's love.
When it's 4th of July, who on the grill?
Right.
You
right.
know,
but that wasn't always the case.
Who frying the turkey?
That wasn't always the case. It's always looked at like the woman's supposed to be in the kitchen.
Right.
So when Daddy do it, man, that's a wonderful occasion.
It tastes different when
Daddy,
when
it
Daddy
does.
cook the chicken.
That's a wonderful occasion when Daddy on that grill, man. So another question. Go ahead.
No.
You sure?
Absolutely.
Another question I had. Okay, you said your uncle raised you. So you were in that household, you had that male figure, you had your aunt, the mom and dad thing, but yet you still had this longing for your own parents at the end of the day. It's like no matter what you might have had that right in front of you, in the back of your mind for that little boy that may be going through that. You might have people caring for him, and people just like, oh, you got it, man. You got somebody in the house. At the end of the day, you still feel that part of you missing.
At the end of the day, it's not the people that you want to raise you.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? I mean, even today, I still battle with that. 100 people can tell me you doing a great job, you made it out, but I still want my mama to love me at the end of the day. I still wanted my dad to be proud of me at the end of the day, because these were the people who birthed me, right? And you think as if the person who created you is not there to love you, then you get what I'm saying?
Right.
You can't really accept that from somebody else, because you were supposed to learn to receive nourishment and love from your birth parents, right? So that's something, you kind of have to battle with and get over and learn to accept love how it comes. But I think that's really... Go ahead.
No, I agree. And what I was going to say is that's one of the reasons why when we were talking the other day, about our sons and the jeopardy that they're in, I wrote by the age of 7. To me, by that time, we start at least understanding what the lack of affection or affection is. You can feel that strong emotion by this point. So when you don't have your, birth parents there to nurture that, immediately what starts to happen, the substitutes can't feel it, and they don't realize they can't, because you've already started to feel what was lacking, and you got a good conscious understanding of what that means to some degree.
Right.
Which leads to anger. That's why little boys start lashing out, and don't ever forget they're hormonal too. We always like to say, oh, women are the most emotional and hormonal. Yeah. Well, don't forget, there's T out there, too. Yeah. Testosterone is something else. Mm-hmm. It can start to consume you, and it can be a very negative thing. Yeah. You start running and punching walls, hitting your head up against the wall and things of this nature. And you got parents that don't, or people that are in a parental position that don't understand that, And what are they supposed to do when you're not their child?
Right.
So they start taking different approaches, which is not necessarily conducive to what that child needs.
Exactly.
And again, this gets extremely familiar with me because by the time I was 8 years old, I was already feeling all of that, So I get it, but I'm grateful for the people, the women that definitely did their part to try to raise me, right? See, that's one of the things that you and I have to do, and all of us technically is encourage people to see the positive and see the things that actually did contribute to the people they become if they allow themselves to become something different. I didn't want to go on a rant, but that's...
You're fine, man.
That was great.
Yeah, I was also thinking about, you mentioned that your father was in jail, 30-year sentence. So a 30-year sentence. As a kid, for all these kids out here that have fathers in jail, that, you know your kid misses you, but to really get in the depths of what they really feel and what they really go through, can you answer the question for me? Are you more looking at it as abandonment, or are you more angry because they committed the crime to put themselves in that situation?
It's a little bit of both. And I'll add a third factor. You try to place the blame on somebody else. We say, oh, it's the system. Oh, it's the police. See, a lot of us black men, we angry at the police because we think it's them who took our fathers from us. But it's really our parent who broke the law. You get what I'm saying? Right. A lot of them knew what they was doing when they was selling drugs. But it's a lot of nuances in that because a lot of black men can't get good jobs. One of the quickest way to make money is sell drugs, and that's another trap. But that's another topic for another day.
Entirely different.
So it's I don't think it's one concrete answer to that. It's probably based on how that person views it, because it can be abandonment. Oh, you in jail, you left me. But it could be, oh, I hate the system, I hate police because they took my dad from me. Right.
So you went through a little bit of both of those stages, or you felt both?
All of them. I went through all of them.
But I hear your words, and each of those particular phrases says, so we do have to hold ourselves accountable, though. And one of the things that we end up doing, learning at an early age to shift the blame.
Shift the blame. Correct.
And it's an easy way out. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not to say what we're trying to shift the blame to, it doesn't have facts to it.
Right.
It's the fact that we have to hold ourselves accountable so we can get past it.
Exactly. And that's
one of the things you did.
Yeah, a lot of us young millennial men in Generation Z, man, we really just searching for role models, and we really are finding the wrong ones, especially in Generation Z. I mean, I have little cousins who look up to rappers and different people that I wouldn't particularly want them to look up to, but I really can't blame them, because when I ask myself, is it any man of any of those households? The answer is no.
Right.
So they have no positive role models.
They don't, but let me ask you something.
Immediate positive role.
Positive household guy. They don't have it in the household. They don't technically have it in the community, right? So because everybody's inundated with certain concepts and ideas through the media, social media, music, whatever the case may be. So that's where we look for our, that's where we start to look as an idol, somebody to look up to, right?
Right. Do you think more people in the community, like the generation before, should be reaching back for those kids, or should they look at it like those aren't my children, so I shouldn't worry? Or do you think that's the responsibility of the men in the community that came before you guys?
I think the black people of America, we've always been in a position where everybody is a family. Right. Especially back in probably the 90s, it was more of a community-oriented culture with black people. Right. If a kid did something wrong, the teacher knew your mom, so you might got a spanking in school, spanking by your mama. Then you went home, got another. It was more of a community-oriented thing. But now black people have become a little more distant with each other, to where if it didn't happen to me, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't exist.
But if one child got murdered, that heightens the possibility of your child getting murdered.
Right.
Because if we all related and we all family, it might, make its way to your household.
To your doorstep, man.
Evil might come knocking on your door if it's next door.
Right. I told you, a lot of people were taken aback by the title of that last episode we dropped on Tuesday, because it was like, bam, not my son,
something
type of thing.
Needs to be heard, because if it can happen to somebody else's son, it can definitely happen to yours.
I mean, it's not too far, man. But look, man, a lot of people, they can take your adversity and what you went through, and they use it for fuel to do the wrong things. But, I mean, you took it and you turned it around. You're a father now, third-year law student, man. Correct. Man, when I can't even stress how proud I am of you, man. That's like defying the odds. When the odds were against you, you bet on yourself. I mean, what more could you ask for? So as a father, though, because you have a son now yourself. You have a son now, so what is your main focus every day with fatherhood? Being that you went through what you went through, what is some key things that you want to make sure you do when you're dealing with him?
Parenting is a very, very interesting thing. And I tell everybody who brings that topic up about parenting, your kid is kind of like a mirror in a sense. He shows me all the good things about me and all the bad things about me too.
Right.
And early on I was in a space where I tried to overcompensate. I was like, my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there, so I'm just giving him all the love that I never got.
Right.
But it's going to come a time where I have to shift that and make sure I'm raising him into a man and not just compensating for the child that I was.
Right.
Because he is his own person, and I try not to put stipulations on him based on my perspective. So now I'm in a space I want to let him become who he is, and I want to be more of a guide for him.
Right.
I don't want to tell him what to do. And even now I've started like letting him pick his own clothes, pick his own shoes, because he's a person. He had his own likes, dislikes. So in the areas that I can give him his own responsibility, I try my best to do so, because I want him to be him. He don't have to be me.
Nobody else
but him.
But see, this is one of the things. So now when we start looking at what we lacked as, young men, right? I'm a little older now, but I still like to believe I'm young. So when we look back at that, when we're nurturing a boy, I would imagine you're still showing them affection, right?
Oh, of course.
You still show them discipline,
very affectionate,
right?
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is that's one of the things that we lack, because my belief system says that if we as men were able to show affection to boys, be there, supportive, love on them, then we would stop the tendency for the lashing of violence. See, that anger we have inside is it's a void. So that's why we're acting in the tendency that we act in, is because we're voided with emotion.
Yeah.
When I say voided with emotion, we don't know how to deal with it. When it arises, we get angry.
Yeah, emotional unintelligence.
Emotionally unintelligent.
It's one of the biggest issues.
It's talk that men are supposed to feel.
But a lot of us are grown versions of the women in our family, right? Yes. We lash out like women. Somebody step on our shoe, we mad. Yeah. See, if it was a man, he would tell you that's minuscule. You got too much to lose to throw your life away for something that small.
Right.
And
people do it every day, man.
People do it every day.
Every day they'll sacrifice everything.
Everything.
All right, man. So tonight, we're not trying to hold you long. We're glad we had you here, but I do want to ask, for that little boy that's sitting in that room, and maybe like you, father's not around, he got all the adversity he's going through, he don't know which way to turn, he don't know what he feel, he don't know how to deal with what he feels. What would you say to that little boy sitting there? We're going to call him little Cedric. What would you say to young Cedric sitting there right now today?
I would tell a young me, I would tell him one word, is longevity. The key is to stay alive. The person who wins is the person who stays out here the longest, It don't matter how much money you make in 1 month if you're dead the next month. It's not about how much money you can keep. It's not about how much money you can make. It's about how much money you can keep. And the goal is to stay alive, right?
Right.
So I would tell them, think longevity. So in every decision, think, is this a decision that will lead me into the tomorrow, or this is a decision that will shorten my days, So getting into arguments with people, fights, going to jail, selling drugs, it's only two things that come with things like selling drugs. There's death or jail, right?
Right.
Those short-ended sticks, right? We looking longevity. We trying to see how long we can stay out here. The black man deserves to grow old, and that's a thing that kind of been floating around social media after the death of a lot of rappers. And I think that's something that young Dolph's fiance or wife kind of coined, because a lot of black men not growing old.
Oh, man. Hence the title, man. 25.
We
it's
deserve
real
to grow old, right?
Right. It's like not even looking like something possible for a lot of these kids walking around here, man. It's sad. Hopefully they can listen to some of this, listen to someone like you who've experienced some things, and they can actually, take heed to it. I'm hoping some young kids just get on here. People, let your kids listen to it, man. Let the family listen to it together, man. It's family appropriate, it's kid appropriate, and they have something to say, especially coming from these two men sitting here. I'm proud of y'all. I look up to y'all. Man, I love y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all represent well for black men. I give you that, man. Anything else before we wrap it up tonight?
The only thing I can think of at the present, man, is that if we're not understanding the fact that we're gifted with life, every breath is valuable, and when we're looking at our children, understand that each of their breaths is valuable. Try to raise them, try to instruct them, try to show them affection and love. when we're lacking certain male figures within our household, let's do better as a community. Because when we do that, that means we're building each other up every single day. And that makes a better person out of us each day. Because when I think about taking someone like I'm old enough to technically be your father if I got caught up in the world the right way, right? As they say. When I think about that, is here I have an opportunity to have a young brother, a son figure in my life, so to speak, right? Take those moments to be affectionate with one another, show each other love, and say, hey, it's okay. I love you, brother. I got you. And we do that for each other, and we'll build a better community.
Agree. I mean, you have to think, if there's no father in the home, a lot of us never got a hug from a man. You know? A man never taught us how to reconcile, how to deal with your emotions. The easiest emotion to express is anger. A lot of people know how to be mad, but they don't know how to be hurt, how to be sad, how to be, regretful.
Right.
We just know how to be mad.
That's it.
And when you're angry, you make irrational decisions, and that lead to other things.
And it's a major emotion that we don't know how to deal with.
But you don't know how to regulate.
One. Right, man. That's some gems you dropping, man, at a young age, man. Cedric, we appreciate you for coming by.
Absolutely.
It was good to have you, man. As usual, you guys know what just happened. You just been stroked.
Hey, don't get stroked up too much. Be careful.
Oh, man. You know what to do, man. Like, share, follow. If you want to follow us on social media at STROK'D _ the podcast. Once again, at STROK'D _ the podcast. You guys have a good night. Usual. Bye.